Thank you, Steve. All right. I will call this meeting to order. By that clock, it's just after 7. Thank you all very much for coming. And I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 land and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. A further reminder that this meeting is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our website for viewing tomorrow, and that's on YouTube. Coming up next, I will start with introductions on my far right with Erwin.
Hello everyone, Erwin Cummings is my name, and sorry I missed last meeting, but I'm happy to be back.
There's a microphone there.
It's here, I might as well use it. Hi, I'm Graham Randall. Nice to be here, nice to see you here.
Penny McMorris, Reeve.
Lynn Kimmelman.
Steve Axworthy. And Mike Bartmanovich. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Lynn, we do not have a committee of the whole, and so we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted with the following additions: a utility workshop on April 9th and 10th in Portage La Prairie for 2 of our Public Works water treatment plant employees, and discussion on contents of a green bylaw. Any further additions? All right, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Be it resolved that the meeting agenda be adopted with those additions. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oops, I signed it in the wrong spot. All right, moving on to the minutes of the March 5th, 2019 meeting, which have been circulated to all of council. Be it resolved the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March the 5th, 2019 be adopted as presented. A mover and a seconder, please, and thank you. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any discussion on this resolution? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, thanks very much. Next up is a delegation, the Victoria Beach Permanent Residents Association. You're speaking today, Dennis Muldrew? I am. All right, can you please use the microphone?
Dennis Muldrew, 2 Charles Place. Good evening. I'm just trying to, for the VBPR, we're just curious about several items that are old business, and we're just wondering how they are going along. The first one that we're worried about is, or curious about, is the sign that has been suggested. We're just curious as to what the council believes the purpose of the welcome sign should be, other than just a highway sign, but welcome to Victoria Beach proper.
Would you like me to answer as you go along, or do you want to carry on and then come back?
I guess, well, we've got 4 points on here. I'd read those and then you can comment on all 4.
Sure.
The design, please explain why only one design was shared. Have you already made a decision on that design? We thought there were a number of signs provided. Size, the size of the sign, the message, what does the council believe the message should be sending to those entering our municipality? And we're just not sure that that the board understood that we were not looking for another border marker, like a little brown sign that goes on the side of the road that says, you're here. What we want to say something that, welcome, this is Victoria Beach, and have a little bit of the history and that on the sign. Okay? Those are the points that we're curious about.
Okay, do you want me to address that number one, A, B, C, and D there?
Sure.
Okay. The design, please explain why only one design was shared. We've been working with a local graphic artist, and he came back to council with a couple of designs. We are also hampered somewhat by Manitoba Highways because this sign is going to be on the highway right-of-way. And they have rules and regulations about what we can and cannot put up there. We're only allowed, for instance, to have 12 or 13 words in total. We are restricted by color. We can have lights, but we can't have flower beds. We can't have bricks. And Highways is going to have to approve everything, including the size and exactly where it's going to go. And I'm nowhere near feeling ready to fill out that paperwork yet. I asked our graphic designer if we should be sharing all of our sign designs, which were minimal, there were maybe 2 or 3, with the public, and he said, if you do that, you will never make a decision. And I can tell you that even sharing them with council, it was difficult to come to a decision. So council did settle on one, finally, for the most part, that we agreed we would put forward to the public to have a look at. I'm looking at an, I want to say an 8x10 or 8x8, but I'm not entirely sure of that. I'm not sure if it will be metal. That is probably the most economical way to go. But it will have to be on wooden posts for highway approval. The message that we believe goes out to the community from this sign is welcome, bienvenue. And Steve, do you want to help me with the Indigenous pronunciation? Anin. To Victoria Beach, and on the bottom it says established in 1919. So it tells them when we started, and it welcomes them in both official languages and in the Indigenous language, given that we are on Treaty 1 land and the homeland of the Métis people. So the last one is you believe that your members have never been looking for an additional border marker. The brown sign that's currently on the highway had past its best before date, if you ask me. And I've been working on this project for 2 years, off and on. So that little brown sign will be removed, and this welcome sign, we hope, will be put up eventually after it goes through all the processes with Manitoba Highways and Infrastructure.
Okay. We're requesting that the CAO and council address concerns with parking on both sides of Highway 504. This has touched on concerning the outstanding issue of the end of Highway 4 and the boat launch that's not there, and how it will be regularly accessibility in what form the vehicles, motorized, non-vehicles, will be decided. Although we do believe that most important issue is the parking. In the summertime, it's dangerous to drive by there at anything over like 10 kilometers an hour because there's kids and dogs and everything running in and out of those cars. And they both encroach on the highway from both sides. So there's not like 2 full lanes even anymore. And it's just, I mean, I have to, every time I leave my house, I have to go through that, run that gauntlet. And it's just, I get worried every time that I'm going to hit somebody.
Yeah, I've been down there too, and it is rather scary.
Yeah, and that's our major concern is what are we going to do about all those vehicles at the end of that road?
Because it's highways, we have to approach highways if we want to put no parking signs up there. I'm going to pick on Gary, our police chief, for the moment. Is there anything from a police perspective that we can do about parking on Highway 504? Down in the north end, up in the north end? Thank you. And unfortunately, we met with the Arm of Alexander 3 weeks ago, and their proposed boat launch in Traverse Bay is not going to be ready for this summer. We were hoping that that would take some of the traffic, but if we get the dredging done, not we, but if Victoria Bay Estates gets the dredging done in the channel, that should also see some of that traffic possibly move into Mitch's Marina. We hope.
Okay.
Now, does anybody else want to add to this conversation? Sorry.
That's fine.
Hi, Dennis. A couple of other things that we've also been talking about is we all support a pedestrian walkway all the way from the intersection of 59 and 504 right up to the end of 504 as well. And that would probably result in all parking having to be on one side of the road, which means your lineup's going to get a little bit longer. However, what hopefully that will do is remove some of the safety concerns of vehicles parked both sides of the road. And we would also like to talk to Gary about some increased policing in the area for this summer as well. There are a couple of other initiatives that I would like to see put in place. Better signage, limiting the area at the end of 504 to just the launch of boats, not a beach, directing people to the big beach if they want to spend a day at the beach. Yeah, so hopefully that is going to help to ease some of the congestion at the end of the road. If it's unfortunately vehicles that launch there have vehicles and trailers, but if we could ultimately see them up one side of the road, I think that could make the whole area a lot safer.
Thanks, Mike. Back to you, Dennis.
Okay. We continue to have the issue with the garbage. And we're just curious how that is progressing. We're requesting the council provide a detailed timeline of what's happening, addressing the bear issue, being proactive before the season starts. It has been identified and acknowledges that the bear issue is ours and the community needs to have it resolved to ensure that all humans and wildlife are kept safe.
Thank you. I'm going to turn that back to Mike and/or Graham.
Yep. Thanks, Penny. There are actually several fronts that we're attacking this problem with. Number one is education. We're hoping to arrange more Bear Smart education opportunities out here at the beach in the spring and the summer this year. We don't have a ton of dough to throw around, so don't be looking for a brand spanking new shiny garbage truck, I'm afraid. We're probably going to have to get by with a lot of our existing assets. What we would like to try and do is we have a potential design for a lightweight bear-proof lid that could be retrofitted to our existing garbage bins. And we're going to be going ahead with a prototype and see how it works, see if it will take the rigors of a bear trying to get into one of our larger bins, and yet still make sure that it's lightweight enough that our residents can operate the lids. We're also going to introduce bear-proof bins on a limited basis for curbside pickup. And the plan is to start that this year with a sample size of residents who have curbside pickup now, purchasing bear-proof curbside bins. This would be on a trial basis to see how best to service these bins and also ensure that they are as bear-proof as the manufacturers claim they are. And if we have a successful test result at the end, we'll be moving toward an exclusive bear-proof curbside garbage pickup bin. So, education, looking for a way that we can use our existing bins so that they are operable to residents, but also remaining bear-proof. And also trying to enhance our curbside service so that our public works folks are loading up the truck instead of having to walk through behind bins and in people's yards trying to pick up garbage that the bears have dragged off into the bush.
Thank you. And lastly, we've all signed up for the e-news tool that was previously used but is not really being utilized that much. There's no regular mailings that go out on it, and we would like that sort of like to be picked back up again and utilized. Like maybe the agenda could get mailed out to us, or things like, or any news that's necessary, not just posted on the website, but mailed to the people that are on the e-news.
We have over 850 people, I believe, on the e-news. We agreed when we started the e-news that we wouldn't use it for day-to-day, that we would use it for more important, what's the word I'm looking for? More important announcements.
Like water on, water off
Water
period,
on, water off,
but that's
that
basically
kind
all
of
it is.
thing. Yeah, but we also feel, I was actually at a Association of Manitoba Municipalities meeting today, and we were talking a bit about that and how other communities use their e-news. And they use it the same way. They don't want to bombard their residents with 1 or 2 email news items a week, because then people start bailing on the e-news. So it is on the, our agendas are on our website. It's fairly easy to access, but we have to be careful that we don't oversaturate the market, if you will. But point made. And for some things
Is there a
we could,
median someplace you could find?
perhaps it's also a matter of getting the information out from the office and their time constraints as well.
We really haven't had too much news lately. We did post about the emergency meeting that's going to be on March 20th. But really, I went back and I looked at, what we even had on our website, and there was a brushing tender. There was an employment opportunity, and it was nothing that I would bulk email to all of our residents. We tend to send more information out in the spring, summer, fall than in the winter time. Like, I know that we have sent out one time where we asked people to check the roofs, but because there was a big snow. But other than that, we really, in the winter time, there isn't a really lot that we've got that's newsworthy.
I'm just wondering if we could possibly put something together for the next council meeting and just break down exactly what we would be sending. I have no problem sending minutes because that only happens once every 2 weeks.
But those go up on the website.
Yeah, but if we have residents who are asking, because I'm assuming since you're representing an entire group that you probably had more than 1 or 2
We have.
requests. Just maybe, I don't know, maybe 8 things that we could just boil down to when these things happen, then we send them out, just so it's some standardization so people know what they're going to get. But yeah, because one email every 2 weeks isn't the worst thing in the world.
If we have those to send out, yeah.
The other 49 per day.
I would prefer one every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we're not going to start pumping information out just for the sake of pumping information out either. I would strongly suggest, and you said it yourself, Dennis, what's the happy medium? What's important to us versus what's important to you? And I think we need to hear from the people that we are communicating with, which is proper communication planning. What exactly it is do you want to hear from us? And let us put together a content and a requirement schedule, and start getting that information out to you folks, because we all, to a person, ran on strong communication. And I think we're missing it right now, and we have to improve.
Thank you.
I agree with what Mike has said. This subject has come up a number of times, the use of the e-news. The issue's been going around for quite a while. Not everybody checks the RMVB website regularly to see what's there, what's new, what's changed. The e-news is a wake-up. Each time the subject has come up, Lynn has explained quite correctly that she didn't want to overuse it. And that's certainly a reasonable point of view. But I think my personal opinion, and perhaps Mike's as well, is that there's probably a better balancing point between lack of use and overuse. I think there are examples where we could use it more effectively, particularly with time-sensitive information. So I would ask Tammy to loosen the reins a little bit and be not quite so conservative, but it would be up to council to propose to Lynn. This should go on e-news. I can't remember when she said no. So it's perhaps back to the rest of us rather than dumping it on Lynn as to what should go up there. So we could all take a lesson from think about it and use it perhaps more frequently and more effectively. And thank you for bringing that up, Dennis.
Going along with what Mike said, I think we're also going to draft a letter telling you what content we'd be interested in hearing about on a regular basis, if that would help, Lynn.
That would be helpful, sure.
Okay,
And we'll certainly look at it carefully.
thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Moving on to committee reports. Public Works. Graham, you sent in a great email today on that. Is it you or Mike? I don't know. No, it was me. Okay.
I don't know if it's great or not, but it was from me. The Public Works report prepared last week largely by Elaine and Trevor. Just to run through the items, because you have a right to know what Public Works is up to. We spend a lot of money on that department, and they're worth it. They've been involved in the maintenance ongoing of all vehicles and equipment. That's patching up old vehicles to get some more mileage out of them. Garbage and recycling collection has continued. There was a reasonable amount of snow clearing and grading done. The roads in the intersections were sanded. Skating rink cleared off. Water samples for Albert Beach and the fire hall were taken and submitted. I know people are often interested to know, are we getting samples regularly like we're supposed to? Yes, absolutely. That system is running properly. Our garbage truck was taken to Joe Johnson's for service check and safety. And we ran into a few wrinkles there that I'll touch on in a moment. Also, this speaks partly to municipal buildings, but it falls squarely on under Public Works to orchestrate it. There's work needs to be done on the Albert Beach pump house. The little building is falling down. The hydro hookup is decrepit. I've looked at it. I've met Hydro there. I've discussed it with Trevor and other councillors at some length. Irwin was one of the first on the scene and sent me a photograph. The building needs work. It's a horrible little old secondhand shack that just got dumped there from someplace else. But even a shack is $25,000 to put up a shack. So we put together a bit of a plan to do some renovations on it so we could get another 3, 4, 5 years out of it before it eventually has to be replaced. Between Trevor and Elaine, invitations for tender have gone out to do some remedial work on the building, and we're not talking enormous amounts of money. Just put a few more band-aids on that pig, and we'll get some more years out of it, so that it's more water resistant. And also we've been talking to electrical contractor on what's long overdue in upgrading the hydro service there. And the electrical, as it pertains to the Albert Beach pump house, of course, includes something that's already been provided for in the budget, which is a generator and a transfer switch. And while we're on the subject of generators and transfer switches, it has not been forgotten that the generator and transfer switch for the big generator to our critical EMO fire hall is going to be attended to as well in due course. With the garbage truck, and I'll discuss this further with council because the numbers are just talk at this point, it was in for a safety, the safety was done, and they diagnosed a whole bunch of other work that they say is sorely needed. Okay, well, sometimes you have to take that with a grain of salt. Discuss it with Trevor. He's going to get a second opinion on that recommended service work from an alternate provider, and probably find that about 1/3 of what they're talking about, trying to sell themselves some service, of course, is non-essential. But we're looking at a big chunk of change on the garbage truck to keep it up and running and safe that we haven't planned on, but I think it can be accommodated within our fiscal operations. So that's the story for Public Works, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, long story. Got to learn how to make them short. Yes.
Graham, did you remind Hydro that we need to get a dedicated line installed to provide power to the pump house? There's half a dozen cottages or more than that on the same line, and if there's a problem with the line, a tree takes it down, we've got no power to Albert Beach, and I don't want that to happen.
Yes, sort of. Hydro is concerned as we are about the drooping lines, the leaning poles. They said, yeah, there's another pole or two required. We're working with them and our electrical contractor to improve the poles. Hydro will do some of it. As far as a separate dedicated line for the Albert Beach pump house, it was the electrician and Trevor's idea is that from the last pole, the new one that Hydro puts up, might be better to just trench to the pump house from there. And the one leaning pole and the rotten out electrical connection, that has to be replaced. Hydro confirmed that leaning pole beside the facility is not their pole. It's ours. It's our responsibility to replace it with a better one. So we're talking to the our electrical contractor about that. We're also looking into a provision for a different kind of lighting to illuminate that area more effectively on a solar initiative that Steve has been looking into. More about this for your information as we get further down the road, so that I can give you the straight goods.
All right.
Spoken like a true politician.
We got to stay after Hydro. You're quite right. And Public Works is aware of that.
Yep.
You got to work with them.
I just don't think there's enough power.
Well, Hydro's got lots of power, as far as I know. It's I'm sorry.
If you're going to keep going, use the mic. All right. So, are we done with Hydro and Public Works? Finance is next. Finance, Irwin?
Suffering from some phlegm and issues in my throat. Lynn delivered to us the 2018 unaudited year-end statement, and this confirms that we will have an operating surplus of approximately $44,000, which is excellent considering the challenging year that we had. I understand the auditors were in last week, and we expect to have that number confirmed shortly. Concerning the budget for 2019, we have now received our assessment for 2019 from the Lord Selkirk School Division. Your council will now complete the financial plan for 2019, and a public hearing will be held. Advertisements will soon be going out, letting you know when they are. If you want to mark your calendar, April 16th will be the public hearing on the financial plan. Concerning our cash position, our cash on hand has dropped to $117,000 at the end of February in 2019, compared to $280,000 at the same time last year. We have reserve fund assets amounting to just under $600,000, which will be used to support our line of credit, and this will allow us to bridge the gap from now until taxes get paid in July of 2019. Council is committed to controlling expenditures and rebuilding our reserves, but that will take some time. Thank you.
Thanks, Erwin. Moving on to Protective Services, Steve?
So there were six calls last month for fire. 5 of our calls were in the RM of Alexander. 3 of the calls were of a medical nature. 1 was a chimney fire, so please remember to sweep your chimneys. And 1 caused minimal structural damage, and 1 was for search and rescue of a snowmobiler in minus 33 temperatures. With respect to the policing, there were minimal calls, very similar as to the last time that was reported, so just under 15. And other than that, it's been very quiet. People don't want to cause crimes when it's cold. So, yeah. So, thanks, Gary.
All right, thank you, Steve. Special events, just a very brief update on the 100th anniversary plans. A reminder that we do have a 100th anniversary Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please have a look at it and comment and send us pictures and your thoughts. I've got a great group of people working on a few initiatives. We've got our historic interpretive panels, Albert Beach events, much thanks to Lise Barassa, a VB musical taking place here 2 nights, August 11th and 12th, or 10th and 11th. And our anniversary day event, which will be on the Village Green on August 6th. Faith Bible Camp, Ron and Robin Hampton are offering tours of the historic Elk Island site and the new Faith Bible Camp. And yeah, we're looking at any other ideas or any other bodies who would like to volunteer. Please get in touch with me. Moving on to the golf course. All right. Yeah. Right. Municipal buildings.
Sorry, folks, that's me again. I'll be brief. Municipal buildings, that's actually a footnote to the building inspector report, which I'll get to in a moment. We're hard at work building on paper and pricing out a permanent, be seasonal, but a permanent bathroom facility at the Pier Point. And I want to thank Curtis Baudouin, our building inspector. He's been working closely with us to come up with something that'll meet all the codes. So we're getting close to being able to put that particular baby out for tender to get it built.
Doctor committee, Erwin, I guess they're still waiting for real spring to arrive.
I think I should book an appointment to see one.
That's not what I meant.
Underway.
All right, thank you. Communications, Mike or Steve?
We're taking input like Dennis's tonight, and we are still working on improving communications at this time.
Thank you. The gate, nothing to report on that at the moment. Building inspector, Graham?
Building inspector, Curtis Baudouin, who submits his reports religiously. Thank you very much. Building permits issued. Main dwelling 2, deck addition 1. Value of permits for this time of year, not bad, $572,000. The cost of the permits, in other words, money for us, $4,063. And I've already mentioned the footnote in terms of the Pier Point Privy, or the PPP, if you want to call it.
Pier Point Potty.
Yeah, we can't call it a wash.
All right, thanks, Erwin, and thank you, Graham. Accessibility Committee, nothing new to report there. Heritage Committee, Steve, you have something to report.
Just real quick, I do want to go back to accessibility real quick, only because the last time that we had spoken about this, the feed was sort of a little bit shoddy. I just wanted to let everybody know, especially watching, that we had discussed several meetings ago that we were going to fix the issue where people would have to reapply year over year over year to say that I do have a permanent disability and that I do need to I do need to drive into the RM. It very rarely happens that I think we have like a total of 4 in the restricted area, possibly even less. But I believe that's been fixed now. So either this will be the last year that they'll have to be done, or I'm not sure how we've set it up, but we have addressed that one issue. So I just wanted to bring that up because yeah. As for heritage in the back there, I have a series of pictures. I pre-recorded on the video, so I'm not sure if we could put that up after this video goes up. But we do have some pictures back there. One is from the 1950s for the water tower, which is over on 8th, which very few people remember. The large picture that's on the left back there is from 1922, from the pier during a fairly large storm, or I suppose large when that gentleman decided to take the picture. Definitely not from what we've seen recently. But I've also managed to source where that picture was from. It's in an archives which people usually don't check very often. So they have just over 100 pictures. So I'll be able to get a series of those. They are not digitized, but my plan is to digitize them. I have the old ice hut back there. So it's Rob Thomas's ice hut, and Victoria Beach used to use it on a fairly regular basis. There's 2 small pictures that are extremely fragile. One of them was of an old hockey team. And has one of our residents that was on it, Bob Sinclair, as well as a picture of the very old pier that was at the end of 504 that was rebuilt every single summer because the ice would tear it down, and they were stubborn back in the day, so they just built a brand new one. Finally, there's a poem back there from Bucko Thomas, which you won't find anywhere else, and so I was able to digitize them. They will be available, and if there's extras back there, you're more than free to take them. And a very, very great find was from Garrett, and I forgot the last name, but he was a Manitoba writer, and it's the only known copy of his story that he wrote that I was able to find. And so there's a copy back there. I can make as many prints now as we need to, but we were able to find it and digitize it, so we have it permanently now.
On that note, I spoke to someone from Friesen's Printing today at my seminar, and if you take them, I mean the collective we, if someone takes them a book and it's in good shape, they can, unfortunately they have to wreck the book, they have to take the spine off, but they can reprint it as many times as you want and then put books back together. So for some of these books that I've been asking for the 100th anniversary, they're long out of print. If the people who own the books are willing to take them into Friesen's, they can get a cost and get them reprinted. Which is, I don't know what the cost would be, but they're more than willing to work with any residents who want to do that, or families. Because otherwise these books go out of print and you lose that history. You know, so.
And I just like to make one last two last comments. The first is, please give me journals, books, pictures, anything, especially if you don't think that anybody will ever care that, oh, this is from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, oh, my great grandfather had this, nobody's going to care. I'm going to care. And the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to come over and say that, you know, it's not really worth it. Chances are I won't be saying that. The last note I'll say is that I'd like to thank Sheila Sinclair, who is the person who gave me most of those to digitize, as well as having the stories back there in the poem. But that was all thanks to Bob Sinclair, who's one of our past residents now. But he was able to store a treasure trove of historical information, and now we're just waiting for a boat to be moved from the from the garage to access a few more boxes.
Thank you, Sheila. Thanks, Steve. All right, I have any further comments on the reports, gentlemen? Graham?
Two brief comments. On the special events, a word about tomorrow's EMO conference meeting, get-together. You can speak to that better than I can.
All right, we are hosting, and I believe that went out in e-news, an emergency measures operation meeting here tomorrow night at 6:30 to 8:30. We are having our emergency measures consultant, Shelley Napier, come. Shelley worked with the province for 30 plus years in emergency management. And also Jeff Irwin from Fire Smart Manitoba will be here. There will be a prize. Little prize. And we really want to let our residents know what our plans are for our community in case of fire or any other disaster. I think, Gary, will you be here? The police as well? Our fire chief, I think, will be here as well. So it'll be a great opportunity to hear how we plan to protect our community, how you can get involved in helping us protect our community, and talk to the people who do this for a living. So please join us tomorrow night. Thank you, Graham, at 6:30.
One other brief remark, if I can. Steve, Heritage. There was some talk, and, you know, just to share this with others, is there still some thought being given to the no longer used building inspectors building by the gate for a heritage purpose?
Absolutely, but I need stuff to put in it. So the idea that I have is to put all the images and stories and everything that I can possibly digitize onto on an iPad, and then put it in a protective frame so that anybody can walk in and access all of it. And if they need, then they can always call me, and I'll print whatever they need. But I need something to put in it. And unfortunately, to date, people haven't been contacting me as much as I would like. I do have one gentleman who offered 2 days ago to donate his old ice picks that were used up here. That's the only thing that I've had from anything physical so far.
I just wondered if you're still got that in the back of your mind when the time is ready.
All right, thanks very much. So be it resolved, the March 2019 committee reports be accepted as presented. Mover and seconder, please. I'll send the next one your way.
Well, wait a minute, we still get discussion.
Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on this resolution? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to accounts and finances. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable check 7197 to 7236 in the amount of $51,384.80 on March 8th, 2019 payroll in the amount of $26,206.48. I'll pass it towards our finance folks.
I have reviewed the list of accounts, and they appear to be in order.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on the financials for today? No? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. No business arising from the previous meeting. On to other business. For everyone's information, be it resolved that the 2019 vehicle restricted period be set from Friday, June 21st, 2019 at 12:01 a.m. to Monday, September 2nd, 2019 at 6 a.m. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmatovich. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Letter re the shoreline structures. Whereas Council has received numerous complaints regarding privately built structures on public land, and whereas these structures are a hazard to public safety due to their size, design, and location, which could result in personal injury and subsequent legal action, therefore be it resolved that a letter be sent to all lakefront property owners requesting that all owners advise the municipality in writing if there is no structure or if there is a structure adjacent to their property on public land. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. I'd just like to give a brief background on this. In the whole, 8.5 years that I've been on council, and before that, we constantly receive complaints about unauthorized structures, unsafe structures, structures that are digging into the bank that are not permitted on public land or crown land, to unsafe structures in the water in areas such as Wanasing that pose a hazard to boaters and to swimmers. As a municipality, we have applied for permits for our own municipal stairs, and we are awaiting approval from the Crown Lands branch. And we are working on a suitable and safe design for stairs that are public or private. In this letter, we're simply asking our shoreline owners to advise us if the structures that are on their property are theirs, if they have a permit for them, and if they're not theirs, then we will be, over time, taking action to remove them and or work with the property owner to put something up that does meet codes and is safe for everyone. So we've been talking about this the whole time I've been on council, and this council has been talking about it. So I would like to see this council finally take some action and get the ball rolling so that we can make our shorelines safer for all of our residents. So any further discussion? Steve?
I also just wanted to point out that there is some pressure from the provincial government to push down on this, and also with an issue that has been somewhat divisive in the community is that to have a lot of these structures up, and especially the way that some of them are designed, actually increases the erosion of the bank. So by leaving A, so many of them up, and B, some of them of very specific design, we're actually eroding away our bank at a faster rate than we would be if we were to not have them there at all, or have a proper set of stairs, which Penny's already addressed.
Graham?
Thank you, Penny. We thought long and hard over the wording of this letter, and Raymond redrafted it a number of times. In its present form, it can't really offend anyone. Is this structure yours or not? The idea going forward is that these structures will be made safe at the property owner's cost if it's theirs, or at municipal cost if they are unwilling to take ownership. This could be a lot of money over a long time, but we had to start somewhere. This issue's been going around and round and round for years. What are you doing about the beach? And I was personally probably the most conflicted member of council on this issue. My situation at Wanasing, my constituents at Wanasing. But if you boil it all down, you'll find when we get around to a vote that I'm in favor of this resolution.
Erwin?
My primary concern was that many of these structures pose a serious hazard to the public, and if we continue to allow them to exist, then we are exposing the municipality to what could be a potential lawsuit should an unfortunate event, a child or an adult become injured, and we certainly don't want to have that on our watch. So we're beginning the process of trying to deal with these structures, make them safe or remove them.
Thank you. Okay. All right. No further comments. I will ask for all those in favor of this resolution. Carried. Thank you. All right. The CIBC annual borrowing. Whereas the CIBC has requested an updated borrowing resolution to meet their security requirements, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the RM of Victoria Beach authorizes the ongoing operating line of credit of $500,000 and the 5 corporate Visa cards with a total limit of $20,000 for the year 2019. I'm going to pass this to the finance guy. Thank you, gentlemen. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Mike.
Just if there were any substantial changes to the terms of the agreement this year from last year?
No, there were no changes. It's exactly the same as it's been for the last 5 years.
Any other concerns, comments? Erwin?
Just for the benefit of everyone, municipality gets the bulk of its revenue in the month of July. Often we run out of money by January, February, so it's necessary to have a operating line of credit to bridge between now and the time when the next block of cash comes in.
We have a line of credit and we really don't use it. What we end up doing is we borrow from our reserves, we borrow from ourselves. Instead of incurring a fee for borrowing, we use our own money and it covers us in the shortfall till our money comes in July. I don't know the last time we've ever used our line of credit, but.
That's the technical answer. The simple answer
Right, that's the
is
technical answer. That's yeah. All right. Any further discussion on this resolution? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Summer Winds Music Festival. Be it resolved that a letter of consent be given to the Summer Winds Family Music Festival to hold a community event on July 19th and 20th, 2019, at which there will be beer gardens and alcohol will be served. I'll send it that way. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any discussion on the Summer Winds request? Steve?
It'll come up later, but it's just about the use of water bottles there, but it's something for later.
Okay. Right. So moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, Bell MTS, request to bury cable on the municipal right-of-way. Whereas MTS has requested approval to install facilities on a municipal right-of-way to provide service to Mildred Place and Hampton Haven. Therefore, be it resolved that the application to plow new cable on a 1 meter line of road allowance and a place pedestals on 0.3 meter line of road allowance on Hampton Road be approved. I'm going to send it this way again. Moved by Councillor Axworthy, seconded by Councillor Bartmanovich. Any discussion?
Can we ask them to expand it even further, like the whole RM?
No.
Possibly over to Safi's store, the bakery, to every residence here?
I don't think that's quite how it works.
Is this burying existing wire, or is this net new infrastructure?
Lynn, it's new infrastructure. It's new infrastructure. And it's not really going very far.
Gee, and then I can't get them to answer my phone. I can't get them to answer my phone when I ask them for home service. Okay, thank you.
They came to us. Yeah, yeah. All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, moving on, discussion of burying hydro lines. Just hang on there a sec. Discussion, and then following up, discussion of commemorative solar light program, and then a green initiative. I just want to preface it by saying that I want council to bear in mind that we do have a priority list. We do have a strategy plan that we worked very hard on. So let's have this great discussion, because Steve's got some great ideas here, but let's bear in mind our strategy and our priority list.
So one of the things that I think that we're all very scared of, and especially once I got onto council and really started looking at fire and emergency, was the risk of a large fire in the RM. Aside from dry conditions, one of the biggest threats to the RM are the transformers that are around, that are stationed all around the municipality. Really all it takes is for one tree to fall down on the wrong spot onto a transformer, blow it up during dry conditions, and we have ourselves a fairly major problem on our hands. On top of that, our residents are subject to probably a power outage at least once a week, sometimes every other week, but there's always somebody up here that is out of power. So I feel that it would be a good idea just to formally ask Hydro to bury our lines. They are actively doing it around the province right now. So if we could draw their attention over here, then it sort of serves two purposes. One, to lower our risk of fire, but at the same time, it would be of benefit because we wouldn't necessarily have to call them up every so often to come up and fix a line which has been knocked out.
I wonder if this is something that we could also ask tomorrow night at our EMO presentation, what their thoughts are on burying hydro lines. I don't know if they would.
I also brought it up with our EMO coordinator, and she agreed that it would be a very good idea.
Going forward, are you suggesting a formal correspondence or request to Hydro to look into burying our lines in perhaps a program zone by zone over time? I understand we have to make the request to try and get their attention, get them start looking at it, and I think we'd all be in favor of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I'm asking, is just to request that essentially just say that the Council of Victoria Beach is formally requesting that Manitoba Hydro proceed to bury their lines and send that request into Hydro directly.
Okay. With our involvement with various associations, Penny and I might be able to feel out some of the other municipalities and what have they done on this. How does it work? Where do you go? What's the right thing to say? Okay, thank you.
I think this does deserve some further discussion and maybe some more research. I don't know what, there's got to be a cost to burying hydro lines. I don't think we can just send a letter saying, hey, we look forward to you, burying our lines. I think we need to ask about costs and logistics and realities and that kind of thing.
I've already made that contact. Our email coordinator was able to get me the contact information of somebody who then gave me the contact details for the people who would be receiving that request. I haven't made the request to those people because I was waiting for council first. I just wanted to be prepared that if we were to say that yes, we would want to do that, that I would have the names.
And just to bear in line, don't exclude Bell MTS out of the conversation because landline service is serviced on hydro poles here.
Okay, I don't want to just leave this dangling, pardon the pun, but are we going to make a decision on this? Do you want to think about this a little further? This is just a discussion topic. Do you want to, Erwin, you look like you're mulling something over?
I certainly would support the idea, but if you take a look at Hydro's balance sheet, you'll see that they're broke. The likelihood of them expending the necessary funds for this kind of project at this stage, anything's possible. If you don't ask, you don't get. So I would be in favor of putting forward a request. The worst that can happen is they can ignore it.
I know I've seen their financials. I've gone over them in great detail. I worked on the PUB order, but it's exactly as you said. If you don't ask, then you don't know. And if they say yes, then great. Then we've done a really good thing for the municipality. And there's also a couple other things which I'll discuss outside of the council meeting that have to do with the next line item and the one addition that I added.
So I'm hearing that council is fine with a letter of request asking for information on the possibility of burying hydro lines in our community.
Just a question came to mind. I wonder if they're imposing any regulations which would require the burying of lines in a new subdivision.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, you're happy with that? You're okay with so far? All right, your discussion of commemorative solar lights.
I meant to pass these down before the beginning of the meeting. So our budget sheets are made public, so I invite anybody to go over and take a look at them. One of the things that you'll notice is that last year we spent $7,500 on street lighting. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I worked on the PUB order that reduced the increase in what Hydro is asking for from 8%, an 8% increase a year down to 3.5%. This year they've been nice enough to do a 3.4% increase, but I would not expect them to go lower than 3.4% next year or for the next 4 years. If you tally that up, what it means for the RM, a couple of things is that we tried to keep our increase to taxes in inflation, but hydro rates are not going to increase by inflation. So there's going to be an added cost to the RM, and over the next 4 years that would essentially amount to just over $35,000 in just lighting the street lights. So what I'm proposing, because finances are rather scarce, but is that we sort of reach out to the residents, and there is a demand for more green initiatives brought on by municipalities, but also there are some problems with people dedicating a bench, and some people having a little bit too much fun one night, and suddenly that bench goes missing because people didn't have enough firewood. So what I would like to do is to say that, well, since we have this $7,500 cost, which is going to increase year over year, if we get a little bit more proactive and say, let's take a look at solar lights, which I've been able to source for 20% less than their cost. I've also been able to find 3 federal programs to help lower the cost that we could ask residents to essentially purchase and donate a street light to replace the ones that we have right now. What it would mean is that year over year, you would be helping us with our budgeting, that the municipality would have more money to spend year over year than an increasing cost, which is not going to stop increasing. So I've put forward a request form here, and I would I would gladly make it public and put it over on the table to take a look at later. But all I'm asking for from council, at least just to open the discussion, is to say that I would like to investigate whether or not there's if we're open to working with this type of initiative.
Thanks, Steve. Steve brought this to council's attention a month or so ago, I guess. And at that time, council said that this was not a priority. It is not part of our strategic plan. So my role up here is to say to council, I believe we should be sticking to our plan. And I think this is something that we could definitely look at in another year, in next year's budget. But I also don't want to discourage Steve from starting all these green and very valuable initiatives that could save our municipality a lot of money. But I also don't want to lose focus on our plan. So I'm looking for council direction and comments.
I have one comment, and I certainly agree with the idea that this is a larger plan that doesn't quite make the cut as far as our immediate priority list that we've agreed upon. However, just to make sure that council is advised and interested citizens, Steve enlisted my help in this campaign, and as far as the Albert Beach Pump House, which I've already talked too much about, I've been in touch with the solar light supplier, and he's prepared, they say they're prepared to erect a solar light there and charge us for the installation only. The installation price he gave me was $750. We'd have to put in the pile he could put the thing on. These things run $2,000, $3,000 each, so we may be able to get a free home trial with the type of fixture that Steve is talking about, with council's blessing to go ahead. So there could be one example that we could point to for your information as we go forward in years to come on this subject.
I'd also note that I've had 4 people who are very interested in this project, who are residents of the RM, who haven't said they haven't committed, but they just said that if we did this, that they would be interested in pushing forward with this.
And the other concern that I raised previously with council was, if we go with the solar lights, that means we need to get rid of our hydro lights, and there will be a cost to get rid of the hydro lights, right? And those hydro poles hold the phone lines as well. So there's a few things to consider. Mike, do you want to add to the discussion at all, or I just want to make sure everyone's heard?
No, just to say, I think I'm in agreement with what I've heard here. I think it's an amazing initiative, but the word that comes crashing back to me is immediacy, and it's a great idea. It needs some thought. It needs some planning, and I don't want to see this idea go away. But going back to our own list of actionable items, there are things that we have to be addressing first.
Okay. What about Graham having one at the Albert Beach Pump House?
Well, this is just an addenda to the discussion. It turns out by coincidence that would be an opportunity to get our hands on one of these things so everybody can see what they're all about. If we're able to do that cost effectively, and if council agrees, I'd like to suggest we take them up on their offer. There's no obligation on our part. I've made absolutely sure of that, and they would like to put up a little sign, compliments of yada yada company, and I said, well, we'll have to approve the size and shape of the sign, but it looks like a no lose opportunity for us, even though it's going to be some time before we're ready to go further with this program. But it gives us something you can look at and think about as we go forward.
I agree. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry, Erwin.
I certainly support any green initiatives, but this particular project at this particular time does not fit into our current plans. I think it's important that any kind of material like this not reference the municipality, because it is, at this point, I would not be prepared to support the initiative at this time. I'm not saying no to the initiative in the long term, but I would be very unhappy with this item going out to the general public, because it does not reflect, I believe, the current wishes of the majority of the council.
Steve? Nothing? Okay.
No, I got that. And I wasn't saying put it on the website or anything. I was just simply saying put it over there. Yeah, no, I do understand that it doesn't fall within the priority list that we came up with originally. But I would say that when you look long term, and our overall priority is fiscal management, that to save money year over year is falling within that priority list. Although I do understand the hesitation, but it's not that I'm not going to put this to bed later on. We can talk about it later. But I'm willing to put it to bed at this current moment.
Thank you.
And just so that I don't want to give the impression that the decision's already been made, council collectively will decide on whether to accept a free gift of a typical unit or not, and that would be part of the Albert Beach pump house work. So there's time for discussion on that.
Great. Thank you.
Just one last thing. I'm just going to say that it's not Yada Yada Company. It's Syncmore Energy, since they were nice enough to make us that offer.
We're supposed to be non-commercial in our. They'll have their sign if council agrees to go together with it.
Okay. Thanks very much. Next, Steve, is the Green Initiative, I call it.
So they're two separate things, although it's sort of also very similar. Essentially, what I was looking for I was looking at recently because I had the honor of meeting David Suzuki, which is an experience that I would recommend for anybody if you have the opportunity. But I was looking at the responsibility of council, the responsibility of government in general, and then the one issue which we're all facing, which is climate change. But then I didn't want to make this a climate change issue because it's not. It's a government issue which comes down to the problem with garbage and recycling. And general cost again to the RM, which does fall within our priority list. So I've handed out a letter from Mr. Suzuki, who is kind enough to send one over. Unfortunately, I can't find it in my computer. Thank you. I try to be against paper, but I still have to use it. So I was looking at five individual initiatives. One was a ban on single-use plastics, which does include things like straws, plastic cups, which are not recyclable or degradable. A general ban on bags, on single-use plastic bags. A restriction on plastic bottles underneath of 4-liter bottles. A restriction on chemical fertilizers that contain phosphorus, and a restriction on idling cars. I'd just like to note that the restriction on idling cars is something that has gone through most major cities and is now rolling through smaller municipalities. The chemical restriction on chemical fertilizers would be specifically for phosphorus, not chemical fertilizers in general. And the reason why I bring this one up specifically is because we have a general commitment to the lake, which, as we all know, is not doing very well. We were lucky enough last year to have a drought year, which means that we may have bought ourselves an extra 5 years of lake. but it's an issue, and it's something that we can do very quickly without too much blowback. The two or three issues that I know might have some pushback, although I did approach Safi's store and do some research to see how we can make this work, is a restriction on plastic bottles, straws, the takeout containers, as well as plastic bags. They are currently looking at restricting or bringing in degradable bags, biodegradable bags. The problem with biodegradable bags is typically they only work if you have a compost bin, which we're not allowed to have in our RM. So you can have a compost bin? Oh, that's news to me. I always wanted one. I was told I wasn't able to have one. Anyway, so Christmas is coming. Yeah. So okay. So maybe that's an issue that we can talk about later. But anyway, those are the initiatives that I wanted to bring in, and it does fall within our priority list. So if you don't mind, I would like to read this letter out. It says, Dear Victoria Beach Council, I have become aware through Councillor Axworthy's efforts of his proposal to pass several bylaw initiatives in order to reduce non-renewable waste and lessen your municipal footprint on our planet. As founder of the Blue Dot Movement, an initiative involving over 170 Canadian municipalities pledging to seek to amend the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to include the right to a healthy environment, I strongly support these initiatives. Placing a ban on single-use plastics will help prevent the leaching of hazardous chemicals into our landfills, save wildlife from getting caught or trapped in plastic bags, and save your municipality the cost of having to dispose of these plastics. Furthermore, as you know, the leaching of chemical phosphates into Lake Manitoba is a significant contributing factor to the algae plumes your residents face annually during the summer months. These plumes have become so large that they are actually visible from the International Space Station. Should this initiative pass, you will be sending a strong message that you and other municipalities are looking to help clean our waters. Finally, restricting the idling of cars is a small but significant step to cleaning our air and lessening the release of harmful greenhouse gas emissions. Becoming ever more common throughout our country, the anti-idling movement supports Canada's Paris Agreement targets and shows the federal government that municipalities across the country are ready to do their part. Sincerely, David Suzuki. So I would like to say that I would like to go forward and try to move on putting these into a general green bylaw at some point in the near future.
And I think it makes an awful lot of sense. Mr. Suzuki referred to Lake Manitoba, though, not Lake Winnipeg. But I think I know where he's going. But this is also something that I think council needs to think about and discuss, because we also have, you've spoken to Lee's, which is great, but we also have the bakery, we have the Moonlight Inn, Senior Scene, Sports Club, the VB Club. So there's a lot of people in our community who may be impacted if we say we would insist that you get biodegradable cups, straws, takeout containers, etc. So I would just like to give our public and our leaseholders and our community members time to absorb it. And we also need to come up with a bylaw. That's something that Raymond and Lynn could work on in the future. But I do think it's a worthwhile initiative. I'm not sure if this summer is enough time, but I would like to get buy-in on a positive note instead of a you must note. So, Graham?
Yes, Steve and I had discussed this. He tried it on me, being the curmudgeon who would most likely resist these initiatives. But I can see that he's on the right track. There's going to be pushback. We have to consider all the merchants. I like the idea that I think council has to agree upon what would be the provisions of this bylaw. 3 of them, 5 of them, none of them. How much, how far can we push? How fast? It might have to be phased in over time. But I think it's a positive initiative that we should get behind and try and bring something forward.
Erwin?
I also wholeheartedly support this idea. I think The issue will be not in terms of the long-term imposition of the ban, but rather the phasing in of it to allow people with to give proper notice to adjust to the changes that are required. Many of you will know that my son and his wife live up in Fort McMurray, and 3 years ago they imposed a ban on any plastic bag. There was some pushback, but now everyone walks into the grocery store with their recyclable bags. Interestingly enough, though, the only place you can get a plastic bag in Fort McMurray is at the liquor store. No idea why they were granted an exemption. But it certainly cleans up the streets. You don't see the plastic garbage bags blowing around as we see them now. And it's really all about the implementation process and a reasonable phase-in, phase-out process.
Steve?
I just wanted to point out that some of the research that I did to try to be as accommodating to the local businesses as possible is I was able to find a supplier in the States of essentially a vending machine for water. And they're willing to sell these units, which are normally $1,100 for $2,500, simply because.
1,100 to 2,500. That's not a good deal.
Oh, no, so the reason is the reason is because they've essentially changed their products, and these ones don't fit with them anymore. They've downgraded the size. So these are the size of a vending machine. What they now do is much smaller, and so they don't have anybody in their area that they can sell these to, and so they would be willing to sell us these units because they just simply want to get rid of them for $2,500. But I'm not saying that we have to go ahead and do all of this right now. I'm just simply saying that I've given that olive branch out to try to work with them.
Okay, but it still doesn't compute. You said they would sell them originally for 1,100, but to us for 2,500. I think, is it backwards? Are we paying 2,500 for something that's worth 1,100, or are we?
Oh, sorry, 11,000. 11,000. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, 11,000.
Oh, okay, another zero.
No, yeah, they were selling them for $11,000. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
They were selling them for $11,000, and they're willing to sell them to us for $2,500. Sorry. It's a late night. I only had one cup of coffee. I'm usually on my 10th by now.
The $11,000 model is autographed by David Suzuki.
Yeah. Oh no, they're American models. Who's there? Al Gore. Al Gore can. I do thank you, Steve. You put a lot of effort into these, and they're all good initiatives. But I do think they need some time, and I think council needs some time, and I think the community needs some time. So let's not let this fall off the plate. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. One more thing on our agenda that was added is a course. Be it resolved that Trevor Hallgren and Brad Patzer be authorized to attend water quality sampling and testing on April 9th, 2019, and water and wastewater chemistry for operators on April 10th in Portage La Prairie. Further be it resolved, the ARM of Victoria Beach covers all registration, hotel, and travel costs per the meal and mileage policy. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Randall, seconded by Councillor Kumka. Any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Any correspondence for discussion? It's been very quiet. Question period, and I ask that you keep your questions to something that's been discussed tonight, or something that's been discussed tonight, and remind you that you can send us emails, you can give us phone calls, you can go on to the e-request, all of those things. Stuart.
Yes, actually the question is to Mike. You mentioned sort of personal boxes for garbage. Sort of curbside. How much would these cost, and who would be paying for them?
Good question. We're still trying to work out the cost based on the size of the bins that we would make available. They could be in and around the $200 mark.
So you'd require all residents of the municipality who wanted garbage picked up to buy one then?
That would be not unlike what they've done in the city of Winnipeg.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
clarification. Secondly, the shoreline letter that you're sending out, I actually commend you incredibly for doing this finally. Previously, I have reported people building things on the shoreline. The police have never taken any action, even though it was done illegally. So I really commend you. But the question is, what if people don't respond? You're sending them a letter. Do you have something? Hypothetically, it's me. I'm on the shoreline. I've got a big set of stairs I built on public land. I don't reply to your letter. What happens?
If you don't reply, if you don't tell us the stairs are yours, then we feel we have the authority at some point in time to remove them.
So you would know they were there?
We do have an inventory of all the stairs along our shoreline.
But I believe that was done by the province, right?
That was done by the province, and we're working with the province. That's part of the reason this letter is going out.
Okay.
Because if the stairs are on the provincial land, which is Crown land, which is most of our shoreline, but not all, they are the ones who provide approval. Just like those big sandbags on Alex and King Edward, that's approved by Crown Lands Branch.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for us to get Crown Lands Branch to help us out, we need to help them out by taking an initiative and by starting off getting in touch with the property owners. If it doesn't belong to them, if they say it doesn't belong to them, or if they don't respond, then we feel it's up to us to get rid of it.
Oh, very good. Excellent.
I mean, over time though, we're not going to be able to do it all in 1 year. There is a cost.
No, actually, I commend you in doing that. The other thing is about burying hydro lines. The idea is that apparently about 2010, we were supposed to start burying our water lines at Victoria Beach. It was never done. So I was wondering whether or not these two things perhaps could be combined. When you're burying hydro lines down the back lane, you also bury the water lines.
We are working very closely with the Office of Drinking Water, and that was brought up last summer. They have not made it a requirement as yet, so when they do, we can definitely discuss that with them. That was something that Steve did bring up in earlier discussions, that if we're burying hydro lines, maybe we could dig a little deeper and put our water lines in, but...
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess the final question is, you referred a number of times to your priorities as the council. Is there any place that you have listed these, or any area that one can consult what your priorities are?
That's a good question. We did not put it on the website because it's more of a fluid document. I think that's something that we could definitely review and look at and see if we could get some of it up there.
Okay.
There's been discussions about holding an open house in the spring and the fall and outlining our priorities and our plan of action, and that could be a good time to talk about those things. Just to clarify one thing, Penny, I believe the Office of Drinking Water is now insisting on that any repairs to water lines must be buried.
I'm not sure that that's because any repairs are usually above ground. We do have lines underground. We do have some lines underground, but we haven't, to my knowledge, heard anything definitive from Office of Drinking Water on that. Maybe
I thought
new
that
lines.
that came up at the meeting we had.
Replacement, I think, may have to go. They may request that those go under, but I don't know about repair.
Stuart, certainly we agree it's a long-term problem. The economics of burying all the water lines and the power lines and the phone lines.
Oh, no, it'd be a gradual process, obviously.
But it's also,
You don't expect it to happen overnight.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It also creates jobs for some people, too. It's called infrastructure, right?
Well, right.
It's called infrastructure. It's called infrastructure. The federal government wants to spend $15 billion on infrastructure, so this is infrastructure. Anyway,
Yeah.
so thanks a lot.
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
bringing
Thank
this up, Stuart. We had talked about putting our priority list, which we worked long and hard on, and that was a real slugfest. Some of us, including me, would like to see it on the website, perhaps in preparation to the open house that Irwin has alluded to. Here's what we got so far. Let's get together and talk about it as a community.
Okay. Young man?
Hello, my name is Doug Peterson. I am a person who lives on the shoreline, and I have a couple of comments and questions about the letter going out. I agree with Stuart 100%. It's about time we did something. Now, my question would be define structure for me. I know of and have walked on gabions that are on private property on the shoreline that are basically rusty, very, very dangerous, but they're on private property. Okay, now, I don't know whether you're going to call gabions and revetments and other shoreline protections structures or not. But I mean, if you're talking stairs, that's great. And I think the misconception is out there that those of us who live on the shoreline have either no consideration or don't care about what happens. And 90%, I would guess, 90% of your complaints come from people who do not live on the shore. And there are people who own into the water. And when you see a private property sign, they go, you can't do that. Well, you can do that. So, that's my only concern, is to define the structure.
Structure is right now referring to, for the most part, stairs and decks on public land. We're not going after existing revetments. We're not going after anything on private land.
No, that's
We're
great.
starting with stairs.
That would be my only concern. If
Yeah.
when I get the letter, it'll be,
Yeah.
So,
And
okay,
maybe
great.
we can make that a little more clear, but
Good, perfect, thank you.
you're welcome. All right, no further questions? Oh.
Good evening, all. I want to touch bases.
You're not on there, you're not.
Down or up? It's up. Hello? There we go.
And you are?
The same guy from last month. Tim from Center Avenue. A couple of things. You mentioned burying of hydro, and I don't think you realize the expense of that. You know where my second shack is, just down the road here. To put it from the highway, from the power pole, straight to my house, underground, they wanted $43,000. There isn't a tree in the way. It's straight mud field. $43,000. And I don't know if you also realize that there is a rock ridge that runs through Victoria Beach. Straight down Center Avenue is one of them. There's more than one. A few years ago, we had the unfortunate incident of Mother's pussycat passed, which I kept frozen for quite some time before I could actually bury it. However, I happened to be at a local shop that had a backhoe, and asked them if they were going by, and they said certainly not a problem. They stopped in. It was almost 45 minutes before we found a spot where we could get it in, get this little guy put away. I put a rock on top, which in spring matched all the rest of the rocks, so I have no idea now. But to let you know, the operator was experienced, and it was running a machine identical to the one you have, and just to let you know, there's a ridge there, and to be able to bury cable, you'd be lucky if you could get a speaker wire down there. It's really bad. Same thing with water. You'd be in the same problem. So, not that I use the water, but anyway, just to let you know. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks. Thanks, Tim. All right, any further questions? Okay. So once more, a reminder that our meeting is here tomorrow night on emergency measures operations. Please come and see what we have in the works for our community and how we do try to keep us safe. And that's at 6:30 until 8:30. Prize, there's a prize. Did I say that before? There's a prize? Okay. And our next meeting is in the city of Winnipeg on Tuesday, April 2nd at 6:30 at our office in the city. I will be away. Graham will be holding the main microphone as my deputy Reeve. Oh, I see. I see. And is there a show of hands who would like to be the backup deputy? Okay, Graham. No pressure next week, at the next council meeting. No pressure at all. I'm sure you'll do a fine job. All right. Be it resolved that the March 19th, 2019 regular council meeting be adjourned. Next regular council meeting to be held on April 2nd at 6:30, 705 1661 Portage Avenue in Winnipeg. Mover and a seconder, please. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And thank you all again for coming.